Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. It is Thursday, December 1st.
Wow.
Today's show is presented by Geico.
December.
Switch to Geico, see all the ways that you could save. Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it's December.
12th month of the year.
Final month of the year, too. It goes by so fast. It really does.
Week 13.
Yeah,
You're
almost.
week 13.
It goes
Starts
by almost as fast as a Mike Clay go-kart.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So for Keith Lipscomb's birthday, not cool Keith, as you know, we celebrated his birthday a couple of days ago. We love him. We went out to be able to do a big go-karting thing with a bunch of people here at ESPN Fantasy. And Mike Clay, I'm part of that group. All three of us were there.
Yeah.
I see you're wearing a racing shirt.
Oh, yeah. It's just coincidence.
Oh, just a coincidence.
Just supporting the best movie of all time, Days of Thunder.
It's not because
Full
you
Circle.
maybe were wanting to let us know that you raced faster than the rest of us on go-karts?
No, just here to talk about football today.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So let's do that. Let's do it.
Okay, let's move forward.
wait,
Yeah.
hold on.
So weird. I forgot my notes, guys.
Oh, what do you have?
I accidentally picked up these lap times
Oh,
from
the time
go-karting last
sheets.
night.
Oh.
Just an honest mistake. I didn't. Oh, that's so weird.
Can I just mention briefly, like, for those, if you're looking for, like, what'll be the, like, this is like a bunch of ad reads coming up. Feel free to skip right through if you need to for, like, the next 8 minutes.
No,
because if you want to hear Mike talking about his
It was an honest
racing
mistake.
skills.
I mean, I just meant to get my notes from football, and I forgot. What's that mean? Like the fourth fastest time of the day? Is that good?
I think that is good, yeah.
out of
that
how
good?
many?
Out of
4?
at least 20. I don't
At
know.
least
Best
20.
of the week.
Yeah, that's really good. Hey,
Yeah.
well,
14th best of the week at the track. That's sorry.
did anything surprise you when we went go-karting for Keith's birthday? Did anything surprise you about the people that we went with? Because I thought Field Yates was going to be faster than what he was.
I did. But I think
Really?
I think you'd be a little bit more competitive. You were down near the bottom.
Well, so no, I think I was second to last, right?
Yes.
You were
In our
second to
group.
last. I think you were just worried about your blood pressure, keeping it down. That's not the goal.
Well, I would say
the
this
goal
is
to go as fast as you can.
I apparently was racing the exact backwards as everybody else because after we had a great time. First of all, like Mike, so in his element. I've never seen somebody happier to be somewhere than Mike Clay was
felt
to
so
be on a
good.
racing
It was
track
so
last
good.
night. We had a whole group. Obviously, Keith was there. Daniel, his wonderful girlfriend Rosie was there, and those two are speed demons as well. And after the fact, both Daniel actually knows Rosie and Megan, one of our execs here at one of our bosses here at ESPN. We're talking about like, did you see your heart rate spike on your Apple Watch? So they were checking their metrics. Meanwhile, I didn't know that you could check your heart rate metrics on your Apple Watch. So Mike walked me through how you open up this app called the Health app that I did not know existed.
Which is surprising because you look like you definitely know the health app exists.
Meanwhile, like Rosie and Megan go, and theirs are
even have
like
it set up.
their heart rate skipped to like 120 each.
128.
I was 115, 114, I think, something like that.
Then they get to Mike. I'm like, all right, Rosie, you can just figure out what mine was, and they're like, you peaked at 77. So apparently, what happened was
did I
my
say?
need for speed. Yeah, you were like, no, first, like,
because you're going
you know
so
what?
slow.
I drive like somebody who has a 10-month-old daughter. That's what I do.
That's what I was going to say. It was like you still had the car seat in the back of your
Yes,
go-kart.
exactly.
That's what it was like.
That's how you drive on the road, not when you're racing.
Yeah.
You got to pick it up. Got to put that pedal to the floor and not leave off.
I had
Maybe
fun.
leave
I
off
had a
little.
blast though. It was cool.
so much
It was so
fun.
fun.
The best part was, and you guys can talk about yourself and your own performances in a second here. I just want to make like one last comment that I loved. Is we were on the racetrack and it was 8 of us and then a couple of others. There were maybe 2 or 3, 4 people on the racetrack besides us at one time. And I was saying that like after the pact, like when Mike or Damien or Daniel or whoever, Keith passed us, it was like, oh, like that's so cool. Like good job, guys. Like way to make it happen. Meanwhile, if someone I didn't know, dude, one of the others came up and like tried to pass me. I don't swear very often, but I was ready to drop some F-bombs last night.
Yep.
Like, you think that you can pass me on my racetrack? By the way, I'm about to
saw
probably
that.
not catch up to you and pass you because I drive pretty
They were already
slowly.
gone at this point, so you were flipping them
The
off.
next time you lap me, I am going to probably say something unkind, and I will give you an apple if you ever come to my house for Halloween candy.
I got the Eli Manning double birds ready for the next time that you lap me. That's what it is,
That's
which
it.
is so
That's
great.
it.
It was a ton of fun, though.
It was so fun, and look, racing fast is a lifestyle.
Racing is life.
I wake up, I pee excellence. You know, it's
Wow.
just
Wow.
it is what it is.
it's
If you're not
crazy.
first, you're last. All
Let's
those
clip
things.
that. Can we just clip the IP excellence?
I like to
comment?
control something that's out of control. All those things.
All
All those
those
lines.
things.
That's all I have to say.
It's. So we went to dinner afterwards.
We did.
We went to dinner, and Mike asked the server to refer to him as Max for the entire
Yeah,
game.
it's
I
true.
thought that was a little gratuitous.
Yeah.
Like, I know you love Verstappen.
Max for Clay was
I'm Mike Verstappen now.
That
That's
was
my name.
I thought that was a little bit too much.
Mike Trickle. That's what we're going with.
Meanwhile,
right.
like, who's the worst racer on F1 right now?
I don't want to. Well, he lost his ride.
No.
Yeah.
Call me that person.
Oh, Field Yates. Yeah. Oh,
No.
Oh, wow.
That's just it. I'm not going to disrespect an F1 driver by
By
Putting your
comparing him
name-
to you.
Yeah.
No offense, Field.
I'm
no
not.
offense.
I'm not going
All
to
right, well,
superimpose.
if somebody out there listens, there are two things. If you listen, send me the worst F1 driver. The other thing is if you're out there.
Latifi.
Okay, that's me.
Field Latifi.
Field Latifi. All right. Second of all, and this is something that I think probably you guys can agree with. If you're out there and you're one of those Spotify people and you get your Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year and Fantasy Focus made your top podcasts, like, let us know. Shout us out. We'd love to see it. We'll engage with you guys. Really appreciate all
Heck
you
yeah,
that
that's
have been
awesome.
dedicated listeners to the show all year. Daniel and I were texting our buddy Al this morning. Al, you're the best.
That's
He
right.
had a very productive year with the Fantasy Focus. So we love hearing that kind of stuff.
Heck yeah.
So that's why you do it.
All right, we got a huge show today. A bunch of news we're going to get to. Thursday night previews. Obviously, Mike's wide receiver, cornerback, or shadow report, whichever one you want to call it. And first, I want to say, and I'm really not really first because we're already 5 minutes into the show.
Yeah.
However, our good friend Kyle Soppe is back at
Hey!
work today, hanging out. Took 1 day off, his first day off in what feels like 3 years here at ESPN.
Might be longer than
Congratulations.
that,
It
yeah.
might be. But back in chat as Kyle Soppe. So if you are in chat hanging out, Thirsty Kyle holding down the fort.
Kyle went on vacation yesterday. He slept for 5 hours,
That's right.
which for him is vacation.
Only 5?
Only 5, yeah. Let's
Only
talk
5.
about some news here.
Yeah, we can rip through this
We're
quick,
going to
right?
jump through, and I'm going to talk about Travis Etienne here a little bit later on in the show, Field, but Jags feel good about Travis Etienne playing this week, which is what we want to hear.
Yeah, Doug Peterson made it pretty clear that the reason why he didn't return last week was very precautionary, which is sort of interesting because they were in the heat of a very contested battle against the Ravens in a game that if they want to make the playoffs, which is a long shot for the Jaguars, but if they want to, they needed to win that game. They won without Travis Etienne in a very impressive victory, but he was limited yesterday, first day of practice for the Jaguars. This week before their game against the Lions on Sunday, sounds like he will be available. Just keep an eye on both Darrell Henderson and Jermichael Hasty if Etienne is out.
Yep. How replaceable are running backs though? I mean, that's just more evidence. Even the Jags trading James Robinson away, and then the Jets essentially needing a replacement for Breece Hall.
Bam
and then
Knight.
just- he's a healthy scratch. Like it's just across the league. We see this.
Don't do it.
A
Don't-
team trades for Christian McCaffrey, and he's in a committee with Elijah Mitt. Like it's just
Crazy.
Don't do
I
it.
don't know. Don't trade.
Don't-
Don't spend big assets on running backs.
Correct. Speaking of, Daniel.
Yeah, speaking of first-round running backs, let's talk about Najee Harris,
Okay.
whose status is up in the air for Sunday. And Field, we've been talking about this with the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs. We're not really even sure who the guy behind him that we feel confident is going to be.
Yeah, a couple of updates, though. Jalen Warren did practice in full yesterday.
Great.
Hamstring injury, so
Love
probably
that.
would be him as the first man up because he had been the number 2 prior to Najee getting hurt. And Najee was a DNP yesterday on Wednesday. We'll have more information. And here's the good news about Najee. Nobody tells you more about injuries than Mike Tomlin. So
Yeah.
you'll know. If he's going to play, you'll know one way or the other.
What about Odell Beckham Jr.? Should I expect to see him in fantasy lineups because he's signed with an NFL team sometime soon?
I think the ship sailed here. And Mike, if you feel differently, I'd love to know.
not.
But, okay. It's week 13.
Yep.
Yes.
He won't sign before this week. Let's say he signs at some point next week, which would be the earliest, obviously. He's probably not going to be on the field in week 14. Maybe he's on the field in week 15. Like, if you make it to the finals and you need Odell Beckham Jr.,
something went really.
you got extremely lucky, and then somebody got hurt in your lineup.
Yeah.
Like, I think the ship has sailed. I don't think you need to be adding Odell Beckham Jr. right now. This is much more of like I'm curious where he goes for real NFL purposes than I am fantasy football
Yeah,
purposes.
I agree. No need to run out and pick him up. I mean, if he does have a big game in week 14 or 15, and then it's one of those things where you don't need to be ahead of it,
Yeah.
because a lot of people not as many people are on waivers now anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be ahead of this one. You can use your bench spot for someone else. And if he gets in there and looks good and plays a lot, then you can scoop him up, but probably not. You're probably not going to use him.
We're going to talk about Thursday Night Football here in a second, but you just said waivers. We're getting to the point where we get into playoffs. I want to just open a quick dialogue about how we run our fantasy leagues and the way that waivers work once you make the playoffs. I'm curious, Mike Clay, how do you feel about the way that waivers should work once you make playoffs with teams that are in the playoff contention versus out of playoff
It
contention?
depends on your league. I mean, if it's dynasty, fine. Everyone can keep working waivers. If it's not, and there's no incentive, like you don't have a prize for your consolation bracket,
Don't do it.
then don't do it.
You
Why are
can be in
wasting
the
your time?
consolation bracket and still do waivers as long as there's something to play for, right?
I guess so. I mean, I don't personally care about consolation bracket. If I miss the playoffs and there's
What about a fantasy punishment? If I had
well,
a
of
bet,
course,
then it
of
makes
course.
sense,
If
right?
there's any sort of actual incentive to do it, or there's some meaningful reason to win your consolation bracket or not lose your consolation bracket, then you should be able to. But if there's nothing on the line, do not waste your time on waivers and just mess with the playoff teams.
The only thing I will say, though, is that even if you're not touching waivers because there's nothing to play for, like until the regular season is over, like set a lineup. Even if you're out right now, even if you're 2-10, like don't set. Like I hate when I see somebody else, like I'm competing, I'm jockeying for a playoff spot with another team, and that team is playing the worst team in the league, and they're starting Kyler Murray this week, who's on a bye. Like that rubs you the wrong way.
That's fair.
I agree.
Set a lineup.
I'm gonna say one thing. I think our producer disagrees, and I'm just gonna throw this idea out there. What about the thought process of like, hey, man, and let's say that you play in a fantasy league costs $20.
Okay.
Hey, I paid my $20 at the beginning of the year. I get to play all the way through the end of the season. Real NFL teams get to play spoiler. Do I not get to play spoiler for fantasy teams?
Well, I think
with waivers,
they're
playing the games.
Don't get mad at me. I'm just throwing out the thought process.
Wait, so even, what you're saying, once you reach the playoffs, even with nothing to play for, you can still add players on waivers?
It's just a thought.
for what purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the purpose.
To be able to screw the other people, because that's you're playing spoiler to other people.
I mean, you can't.
I'm not saying I'm advocating for it. I'm just throwing it out there.
You need to find something better to do with your life. Maybe join a dynasty league.
Join
Go-kart racing down in Wallingford. They do a great job.
Find something better to do. If there's something on the line, fine. If there's nothing on the line, stop wasting your time. Do something else.
Let's talk Thursday night preview. We got Bills at the Patriots here. Lineup blocks for this game include, obviously, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Ramondre Stevenson field as Damian Harris is going to be out for this game as well.
Yep, officially out. The Patriots' backup running backs on the roster right now are both Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris, two rookies, 4th and 6th round picks. Would expect an elevation tonight, maybe from J.J. Taylor. Yeah. So those are probably the 4 that are available for New England tonight, but it should be the Ramondre Stevenson show. And I mean, we keep talking about it, but how great has he been? And it's like, as far as floor is concerned, even if you think the Bills' rushing defense is good, I don't care where you think this rushing defense stacks up. Just watch a Patriots game. They design like 5 passing plays per game for Ramondre Stevenson. He's not getting 9 catches because they're getting, no protection of Mac Jones, and he's just dumping it off. It's like a ton of design utilization for him.
He's getting more passing game work in terms of target share than James White gets.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He's had a target share over 20% in 5 straight games. That is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
That's
he's awesome.
Christian McCaffrey,
Dude,
passing game usage
he's
on top of 15 carries.
He's be a fascinating player going into next year because Damian Harris is a free agent. Bill Belichick, as we know, often pretty reserved with praise, especially of his own team. He cannot stop talking about Ramondre Stevenson.
No. Anyone else, just really quickly, because we're talking about Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots.
Injury front, Jacoby Myers questionable to play in tonight's game. Sounds like he'll give it a go, though. He got hurt last week. He ended up returning to the game, which is usually a pretty good sign. So he sounds like he will be available. As far as the Bills are concerned, no other fantasy-relevant skilled player injuries.
Jacoby Myers, understanding that he's banged up, and just because he's really the last Patriot to really talk about from a fantasy perspective outside of Ramondre Stevenson. Low-end flex play for you here this week, Mike?
Yeah, under 7 targets in 4 of his last 5 full games, not even including last week. So that volume that we've been so reliant on with him, where he's always in 8, 9, 10 targets and gives you really high floor in PPR, it's kind of disappeared as of late. Yeah. So that makes me a little bit nervous, but also they're playing Buffalo, and they haven't been as dominant against the pass. So if New England is trailing and has to throw, that could help him out a little bit. So I have him 29th. I think he's a wide receiver 3, a fringe wide receiver 3. If I have him, I'm probably starting him.
All right. What about field for you, Devin Singletary?
Yeah, only thing I'll note with Devin Singletary, I've got him as RB32, and Mike talked about this recently, but Patriots have allowed 2 rushing touchdowns all season, by far the fewest in the NFL. They have been basically a stone wall to opposing running backs, especially opposing running backs that do most of their damage on the ground as opposed to in the air. As we know, Devin Singletary not a particularly prolific pass-catching running back, so I think he is usable as a low-end flex play, but I do think there's a chance that he has a very modest night tonight.
And a reminder, as a part of this, only 2 teams on bye this week, so it's not the bye-mageddon that we're going to get next week where we got 6 teams on bye, so you're going to have most of your usable players here this week. Bills pass catchers outside of Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis has been so difficult for me because I know we've talked about Gabe Davis is basically like mini Mike Williams, right? You got to ride the wave.
Yeah.
I haven't been riding the Gabe Davis wave lately, though. I feel like I've been more out than I have been in.
I think you have to just choose, though, right? Like you have to either ride it or you're not.
Yeah. And he's under 12 fantasy points at 4 of his last 5, to your point, right? So it hasn't been there. But check this out. I think there's a pretty good chance. Look, the Patriots like to shadow. Okay. Belichick's done this for a long time with his number 1 corner. It's been kind of hit or miss this year. But Jonathan Jones has emerged as their number 1. Yep. And the last few years we've seen J.C. Jackson shadowing Stephon Diggs. I think Jonathan Jones will shadow Stephon Diggs tonight.
Okay.
And when he does that, that's going to put Jalen Mills on Gabriel Davis.
If he plays.
That is a matchup. Yeah, if he plays. And if not, it's an even worse situation for them. So I think it's a really good matchup for Gabe Davis. So this is an opportunity for him to maybe have 7 or 8 targets and have a big game. So I actually like him a little bit this week. It could be it's a game you think Buffalo, bad matchup. Not necessarily here.
I got him as wide receiver
England.
34, so you're at 32. So yeah, it's a tricky one with Gabe Davis. It sort of feels like the same thing over and over and over again in terms of our analysis. Isaiah McKenzie cooked the Patriots last time they played in the regular season. It's just hard. I mean, he did have 10 targets this past week, but this is a guy who's had flash moments this year. He's also had moments where he's fumbled the ball too much, been unreliable as a catcher. So we'll see. It's hard for me to feel like you can definitely throw Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, I don't have him ranked. It's a tough one. He was so bad for that long stretch and that one good game. Sometimes that's just the matchup. The matchup dictates that, so I'm not trusting him yet.
All right, this game, Bills are favored.
Oh, I
by
forgot my
4
score.
points.
I don't know what my score is.
Over under is 43.5. You taking Bills or Patriots in this one, Mike Clay?
Bills win.
Do you have a score?
No, I forgot to write it down.
Do you want to look at it?
I'm slacking.
Do you want to look at those time trials and see if maybe a score reaches out to you?
Wow.
I could. I mean, I'll look at we could just talk about this the whole
I'm
time. I'm cool with that.
I'm going to talk. I'll take the Bills for a win here. I'm going to say 28-19.
Okay. You know what? I'm pretty on the fence here. Not going to lie to you guys.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm taking the Bills.
Okay.
But I think it'll be closer than the experts think, to
I
quote
agree with that.
Lee Corso. I will go 27-24 Bills, but I'm reserving the right to change my mind later on in the day.
And
That's
my
fair.
score is go to ESPN Plus, check out the playbook, and it's in there right now. It's up on ESPN Plus. Sign up, and check out the score.
Sounds like win could be a factor tonight, by the way.
Is there anything else available on ESPN Plus that we should check out right now, Mike Clay?
Wide receiver cornerback matchup.
Oh, let's talk wide receiver cornerback.
Let's do it.
All right, coming up this week, you've got the Jets taking on the Minnesota Vikings here. Mike White and these Jets wide receivers. Is this a positive matchup, or should we be downgrading them a little bit, Mike
Yeah,
Clay?
Patrick Peterson actually in the news right now
Yes,
because
he
he's
is.
trying to
He
distract from the Minnesota's horrible pass defense. Maybe you should worry about that right now. Look, he's actually been fine, but the rest of the situation has been kind of rough this year, and teams are picking on them. That other cornerback spot has been problematic. They have injuries there. Cam Dantzler's on IR. Andrew Booth is he was technically third string. He's on IR, but Caleb Evans has been out. We'll see if he plays another rookie. So they've struggled. 5th most fantasy points to receivers, 2nd most over the last month. Most fantasy points allowed to the perimeter this season and over the last 8 weeks, right? So they've really struggled just across the board and recently as well. You're going to see Elijah Moore in the slot against Chandon Sullivan. I'll talk about him in a minute. Garrett Wilson, he's playing more on the perimeter now. He was a slot earlier this season, but it's a really good matchup for him. We'll see a little Peterson, but also has a good matchup on the other side, coming off a big game, and we feel good about him with Mike White. Corey Davis, more of a sleeper, but Elijah Moore is interesting, and maybe we'll talk about him more when we break down that game, but only 2 targets last week. I know he scored the touchdown.
Yeah.
Everybody wants Elijah Moore to happen,
right?
But playing 21 snaps and seeing 2 targets, that's not enough for me. He's nowhere close to a starter, even in a good matchup here.
Gosh.
I need to find a league this week where I can play Mike White. I need to. I need to do it. I need to have the gumption to do it in one of our leagues. I don't know that I can do it in a league where I'm like fighting for a playoff spot or jockeying for like the top seed or something. But man, do I need to find a league where I can start Mike White. I'm
doing it in Fishbowl. He's my QB2 in Fishbowl.
Okay, but there's 3,000 people in Fishbowl. Like, what are the repercussions if you don't win?
In our Dynasty League.
You're one of the other 2,999
I mean, it's the playoffs
people.
now. I need Mike White
you
to get
do.
me to the next round. So I'm on the fence. So
In our Dynasty League, I have Ryan Tannehill and Andy Dalton as my 2 quarterbacks, so I would do anything to have Mike White as one of my guys.
I remember when they benched Zach Wilson, I went right to that Dynasty League. Like, oh my God, can I get Mike White? And then I was like, nah, he's been rostered. Nah, he's totally rostered.
He's been rostered for a long time. Let's talk about a negative matchup here, Mike Clay.
This is the matchup. This is
whenever I think of wide receiver cornerback matchup,
this is the one that you
when
think
I think
of.
about Mike Clay and what he has done to bring this fantasy relevant construct to life. It is wide receiver cornerback matchup featuring Marshawn Lattimore covering Mike Evans. Everybody out there wants to be like Mike with their wide receiver cornerback matchup columns. Mike does it better and has been doing it longer than anybody else. And one of the matchups that really defines this column is these 2 players who have been in the same division for several years now. And these are 2 guys who throw haymakers.
Literally.
Sometimes literally. Yes, when they play.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you recall, these teams played earlier this season in week 2.
Yep.
And they both got ejected, and Mike Evans got suspended for the next game because they got in a huge brawl on the field.
Yep.
It is an intense rivalry. This is the 11th anniversary of these two of Lattimore shadowing Mike Evans. Early on.
11th
Lattimore,
time. I feel like anniversary infers like it's been a year,
okay,
right?
That's a good point. 11th time.
Yes.
11th game. That's how it works with receiver corner.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
That's how anniversaries
I don't know
work.
anniversary.
Duh.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows this. So early on in his career, when Lattimore came in the league, Evans had his number.
Yep.
He beat him up for some good games. But then you have stat lines like 0 catches, 1 catch for 2 yards and a touchdown, 4 for 64, 1 for 3, 1 catch for 3 yards and a touchdown, 2 for 48 and a touchdown, 1 catch for 14 yards last year. And then it was 3 for 61 earlier this season, but he beat Justin Evans for a long catch. So that wasn't even against Lattimore. So Lattimore has had his number for a long time, and you see that frustration on the field, right?
Yeah.
And obviously it escalated, and it's escalated in the past. Like, it hasn't escalated that bad, but they've had, shoving matches and been in each other's faces. So this is interesting. Now, I will say this. Lattimore has been out for a while.
7
with
straight.
that abdomen injury. It seemed like he was close to playing last week, so there's a decent chance he plays in this one. Could he be limited a little bit? Maybe. They have some decent cornerback depth.
They do, yeah.
Especially with finding Chris Harris free agency. He's been terrific
Scrappy,
in the
it's been
corner,
great, yeah.
in the slot for them. So maybe he's limited a little bit, but if he plays and he's on the field, he's going to be covering Mike Evans. So a little bit of a downgrade here. I think the larger concern is the Bucs offense right now, but,
I asked this question to
Good
Field.
matchup.
What's a Mike Evans downgrade look like right now, Mike?
I mean, I have him 20th, which is, and you guys are a little lower. So, I mean, this is not where Mike Evans has been in our rankings the last half decade.
But it's been a talking point
He
for the
scored
Bucs this week.
3 fantasy points last week. Like,
And now Todd Bowles, Tom Brady, Mike Evans himself are all answering questions. What's going wrong there between these two? And the touchdown making has not been there. His volume was always going to be lesser than Chris Godwin once Godwin was back to full health. Godwin clearly is healthy. Godwin is crushing in the targets department right now. Evans is a tricky one because all it takes is 1 week of 4 catches for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns for you to totally regret the decision to bench him. But I'm not so sure this is the week for it.
You seem like you're in pain. Did you play Evans over Godwin in that league last week that you were on
Sunday?
Sunday? You had
yes,
a tough,
but I did. I still won,
You
but
know
I
you
had
did
like
win,
a
okay.
very I have a good wide receiver problem in that league.
Yeah, you did.
So it's tricky every.
You were battling over Evans versus Godwin, though. And
Yeah, it was
Brady or
Godwin,
Jimmy
Ever,
Garoppolo.
Amari
Yeah.
Cooper, and Terry McLaurin for 3 spots.
Oh, wow.
And which are all, listen, it's non-PPR as well. So Godwin a little bit less valuable in that league because yards had been not been his friend. Catches had been. So
I was thinking about you, though. Every time Godwin caught a pass and
I know.
Evans is doing nothing.
that's the worst.
Well, we can talk about that league again this week.
yeah.
All right. Do it again. Yeah.
Let's talk about another matchup here, and I know I already talked about Travis Etienne a little bit, or we're going to even more to start the show, but we've got their pass catchers here, Mike, because they're taking on the Detroit Lions, and it is always a good matchup against that Detroit secondary.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
No,
line
I don't
secondary?
want to talk about it.
It's been rough. Jeff Okudah missed Thanksgiving with the concussion, right? So he has been. We'll see if he's back. I suspect maybe he will be. We'll keep an eye on that. So Mike Hughes played on the perimeter. You just don't know. Like, at this point, it's such a mess that they keep benching players and
Mike
promoting
Hughes,
players.
Jerry
Mike Hughes
Jacobs.
plays, yeah, he plays like you'll see Hughes not play at all, and then he plays every down.
Right.
It's just constant rotation. So they're struggling, obviously. Lions 3rd most fantasy points to receivers, 12th most of the perimeter, 7th most of the slot. They've just struggled across the board, have personnel issues. So Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, both coming off big games. Obviously, Christian Kirk's been awesome in the slot this season. We're upgrading all of these guys. Zay is a tricky one. I mean, his target share has been good all season, but he had so many bad games in a row, and he has 2 huge games. And now he's coming off 2 games with double-digit targets. So
Yeah.
you have to take him seriously as a flex.
5 games with 8 or more targets for Zay Jones, 4 games with 5 or fewer targets, and there's not a lot of rhyme or reason. Like, oh, good matchup here, plenty of targets. No, it's and the guys have mostly been healthy around him. It's just they've got a lot of pass catchers right now and a quarterback who's playing very well as well.
Another revenge game for Marvin Jones, guys.
Yeah, it is.
gotta say it.
Ooh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
A lot of revenge games this week. A lot of them.
Lot of
Wow.
All right, we
Great
got
slate.
Squirrel stock coming up here in a minute, but first, Field Yates.
Geico asked, how fast did Mike Clay race last night? Okay, that's not what they asked. They
so
asked, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance?
Love
Of course
it.
you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help, like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Do they have go-kart insurance?
Oh, I'll ask about that.
Okay, switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
All right, we're week 13, Squirrel Stock here, the segment that everybody has been waiting for. I'm going to give
I've
you
been waiting all week. I can't wait for this.
I know. You texted me last night.
I was like, when's Squirrel Stock? Can we do that early?
And I
Can we
said,
just
please,
nail that right off the top.
Mike, I write
like,
so
no.
many things for ESPN.com throughout the week. You just got to wait, man.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Now it's here. Let's talk about some players. Let's start with, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start owning my own hurt. Travis Etienne taking on the Detroit Lions.
I get it.
Got it. I didn't get it at first. Now I get it.
It's only taken a few years for him to pick on his Lions.
No
But
big deal.
We got him here.
No big deal.
I'm telling you, all you people are just riding high these days. Mike with his Eagles thinks he can say whatever he wants.
Stefania with the Niners.
Yeah,
That's right. That's different. That's a different
But
thing.
Stefania's going for the reverse jinx left and right. Anyways, all right, let's talk Travis Etienne.
Obviously, Travis Etienne is somebody that we all like this week. He's been somebody we've liked for a long time, but this week getting the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are allowing 154 rushing yards per game. That's the third highest clip in the NFL. This defense is giving up 28.2 points per game. That is the most out of any team in the NFL. And yes, I know for a fact that Travis Etienne was hurt last week, so you might be like, well, I don't know. Are you sure about this? The 5 games before last week, Travis Etienne had 97 touches for 629 yards. That's 6.5 yards per touch. Wow. Per touch. I have Travis Etienne as a top 5 running back this week. I think everybody has him as a starter, but I am all in, massive stock up on Travis Etienne because of this matchup.
Yeah, he's underachieved in the touchdown department too. So far, his expected is 6.5. He has 4 touchdowns, so there's still some room to grow there.
Wow.
But that usage is great. So I'm a little bit lower than you guys, but he's a borderline.
But how much lower are you?
I have him 13 apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna say, tell me why. Is there a reason why? That
Just
seems like a
because
fairly.
There's just so many high volume good backs right now at the top.
Got it.
It's just
Okay.
rich with options. So, and also Detroit has struggled against running backs a little bit more. You know, the defense is coming around a little bit, right? It's not as awful as it was earlier this season. So that's it. But again, he's a lineup block. Like if you have Travis Etienne, you feel great about it. You're starting.
I just that gap is like wider than we normally talk about running backs in the top 15. So I wanted to make sure there was nothing that I was missing, because usually when my rank is way different than Mike's would be like, well, did you know that the Lions haven't allowed a running back to rush for more than 4 yards in the past 8 games? And I'm like, no, I did not know that. Thank you for pointing that out. I will adjust my ranking accordingly.
All right. Love Travis Etienne this week. Let's talk about another running back. Leonard Fournette is Squirrel Stock down. Do I need to explain why?
Nope,
I will,
next
guys.
player.
No, you don't need to. No, you can.
Here's the thing. Rashad White has come on and looked really great the last 2 weeks, even with Leonard Fournette there 2 weeks ago. Rashad White was a usable piece in this offense, and then last week without Leonard Fournette, he looked great. He caught 8 passes last week, heavily utilized within this passing game. And unfortunately, no Tristan Wirfs for this offensive line, which is just as much a downgrade for Rashad White as it is for Leonard Fournette. But with the oncoming of this rookie that they have liked, the continued offensive line, that offensive line that was already bad just got worse.
Yeah, so the secret sauce for Leonard Fournette coming into the season was a rare production in the passing game. I think he was 3rd amongst running backs in catches last season. It hasn't been quite that good, but it's still been very good for much of this year. Well, now Rashad White is A, starting, and B, catching a lot of passes. So the passing game utilization for Leonard Fournette probably going to go down on Monday night. 2, he had a lot of carries in the backfield as well. Well, that obviously number has gone down with Rashad White's emergence. And then 3, and this applies to both of them, the Bucs do not score nearly as many touchdowns as they did last year. So the opportunities for high-scoring games have gone dramatically down. The Saints are an interesting team. They're 4-8, but the defense, despite some major injuries, has still been very good. So I'm with you, Daniel. This is a tricky one. Like Leonard Fournette a lot as a player, but if you're the Bucs and you are 5-6, and you don't have the gift of luxury or the luxury of time on your side right now, you need to play the guy who's been better for you of late.
I'm totally with you. All right, let's talk about one more player for me, and this one probably seems obvious, but he's still rostered in 85% of leagues, and that's Tyler Higbee. Squirrel Stock down right now for the rest of the season, I feel like.
Maybe.
Single-digit fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games.
How many do you have last week?
0. 5 of his 6 games. So in 4 of those 6 games, he had 2 goose eggs, 1 game with like 1.5 points, and another game with 3.7 points or something like that. 4 games out of the last 6 under 4. Now, let me ask you this. Is the Rams offense getting any better, guys?
It is not.
Is Matthew Stafford starting under center, and has he looked better?
He probably will not for the rest of the year.
Probably will not. So it's going to be Bryce Perkins. And I want
for the rest of the year is what I'm saying. I mean, this week, no, but like the rest of the year, I'd be surprised if he
comes back. Since week 6, Tyler Higbee is tight end 29 out of 31 qualified tight ends, averaging 4.8 points per game. 29 out of 31, and he doesn't even have his quarterback now. I have no idea how I can rank Tyler Higbee as a starter. I've got him at 12, and the deeper I dug into all of this, that feels too high to me because I'd rather take some dart throws on other guys. So for me, massive squirrel stock down as long as Matthew Stafford is not there. This offense, he was the last potential startable piece for the Rams for me. I'm out on Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, and this is a good matchup this week against Seattle, second most fantasy points of tight ends. But, I had him as a back end tight end one. He's a tight end 2 now with Stafford out, right? So I agree. You have to try to find another option, especially after last week. He had 0 catches.
And it's like so good. So I play in a league, not to get too much into like what matters in my leagues, but I play in a keeper league. It's 12 teams. It's a salary cap league as well. So there are some players that are like, there are some guys in the league that hoard like positional values. Of course. And so you might have a guy who does have like George Kittle and Dalton Schultz and I don't know, whatever, Logan Thomas on his team. So you're like, that guy's got 3 tight ends, and like 2 of them are definitely good. One of them we'll see. And so you go to the waiver wire, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, all right, so like Tyler Higbee or we don't. Or like K. Dotton. Oh wait, Johnny. No. Do I want CJ Uzomah? He plays for the he plays for the Jets. Oh, he has no catches in like the past month. It's like there is a conundrum that we have been facing for many years. Again, always Travis Kelce. Just do that.
The 2 tight ends that have scored less fantasy points than Tyler Higbee were Jonnu Smith and Will Dissly in that time. So, listen.
Seems bad.
Austin Hooper and K. Dotton and like Hunter Bryant. Like, there's so many guys that have just been better than him, which is crazy. So, anyways, out on Tyler Higbee, unfortunately.
I'm with you.
Out on tight ends. We just need to create a league where the only 2 tight ends that qualify are Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, and they are automatically wide receivers, right? So next year I'm playing in a quarterback, running back, pass catchers only league. No defense, no kickers, no tight ends.
We'll try it.
Sign me up. I'd come to watch those games. And, maybe some way I could get a ticket to come watch those games. Yeah, that was a stretch. Well, it's the best time of year, and football season is in full swing. Basketball and hockey have returned, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Make up for lost time. Go out and enjoy a game. Vivid Seats, the official ticketing partner of ESPN, is offering you $10 off your first $100 ticket purchase with code FFF. That's code FFF. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Remember, life happens live. All right, we're going to get into a bunch of game previews. First one, and a reminder, buys this week, Panthers and Cardinals.
That's it. 2 of them.
2 guys, or 2 teams. All right. We're going to start with Browns at Texans. Lineup locks for this game include Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper for the Browns. The main question is here, Fields Yates' very first week that we get to see Deshaun Watson after 2 years of not playing football. I have him as quarterback 10. Curious what the rust is going to look like after not having 2 years of playing football. Where is it that you're at on him this week?
Yeah, I suppose there are a couple of questions, including how does he look after 700 days of not playing in an NFL game? It's certainly been a long time. And just how does he acclimate within this offense? We also know that Deshaun Watson, for his career, has averaged 22.1 fantasy points per game. Since he entered the league in 2017, that's second most amongst all quarterbacks, only behind Patrick Mahomes. The Browns have a talented offensive line. They've got very good pass catchers, and specifically Amari Cooper and David Njoku. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been solid for them this season.
Kareem Hunt's great.
And when Deshaun Watson was scoring a ton of points in fantasy in Houston, he was scoring a lot of fantasy points with not exactly an incredible supporting cast around him in 2020. Yep. So he is one of those players that can score despite who is around him. I expect him to be a very high-scoring quarterback. I have him as quarterback 7 on my board this week in a good matchup.
Yeah, I'm at 8. I would not agree with the good matchup necessarily. It's a good matchup for the running game because no one throws on Houston. Like, they're not good at stopping.
Yeah.
Like, efficiency-wise, they're not good, but they've allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks because no one has to throw against them. And that might be the case here. Cleveland might be able to just run the ball, and Nick Chubb might have 24 carries, and Hunt may have 15. That could be the way this game goes.
Rushing yards on Sunday.
So that's and also him not playing for a long time.
Yes,
raises some questions there. But we've talked about this all season. After you get past the top 6 or 7 quarterbacks, it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of your Rodgers and Garoppolo and Brady's and all those sort of guys. Watson has upside, right? He does. Last time we saw him, he led the NFL in passing yards. He's going to be top 5 in rushing production going forward, most likely. So that's enough for him to at least be a back-end QB1.
And you're right that they certainly could run the ball a ton. They also, I know it seems ridiculous right now, but they are trying to make a playoff push, and they need to also get some reps with him in this offense for like what it means going forward. So I think opportunities to throw the football are not to be lost right now for the Texans. So again, I have him as quarterback 7. I think he'll be a lineup lock every week going forward.
I think so too. And we talked about, and I've been talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones, especially off the waiver wire. Hey, go out and grab him, because when Deshaun Watson does come back here, DPJ now has a better quarterback under center. Nothing against Jacoby Brissett. However, this week, for me, there's still this hesitation of, like you're saying, Mike, they're so good in the ground game. If they came out, I can't imagine this quarterback hasn't played, like you said, Field, in 700 days. Let's maybe not have him throw the ball 45 times. Let's let him run the football and be able to see how things play out. So for me, the secondary pass catcher in this offense in DPJ is a little bit farther down this list for me because of that.
Keep an eye on David Njoku, by the way.
Totally.
Kevin Stefanski said that his knee injury that he is listed with on the injury report this week is a different one from what he was dealing with previously. So monitor whether that impacts his availability. If he's out, then either Harrison Bryant or DPJ should be busier.
On the other side with the Texans,
in an ideal world, you're not playing any Texans.
any of them.
You're not.
I think you're playing Dameon Pierce.
In an ideal world, you might not be, because this is getting like, we're at the point now where all the good things that were happening early on in the season with Dameon Pierce could have vanished over the past 2 weeks, because they're getting absolutely steamrolled on defense, as you discussed. They're falling behind. They have fallen behind 20-0 and 30-0 at the end of the first half over the past 2 weeks. They've allowed a defensive touchdown in each of those first halves. The result has been that they've had the most negative of negative game scripts, which limits the opportunities for Dameon Pierce. I still have him as RB18, Mike, but God, this is concerning for me.
Yeah, I think he bounces back. So they played Washington and Miami the last 2 weeks. Two of the better defenses against running backs, right? Miami's been fantastic against running backs. Washington's allowing a really low yards per carry. You can't run on them. And he's obviously struggled. It's been rough. He still has 20 touches during that span, which is not great, but he barely played in the second half last week. The prior 2 games to that, and remember, Houston, I know it's been really bad the past couple weeks. The 2 games before that, though, he was over 122 yards in both of those games, right? So it's pretty recent, and it would not shock me if he got back on track, especially against Cleveland, who has allowed the second most fantasy points and an NFL high 16 touchdowns to running backs. So, look, if there's a dud this week, maybe it's a different conversation. I think there's hope. I'm not going to panic too much here. That's why I still have him 16th. We're close, you know.
I have his RB18. I'm nervous that we're going to be 2:37 on the clock in real life, and Dameon Pierce will have had 7 carries for 12 yards in the first half with 1 catch. Because, oh, by the way, over the past 2 weeks, Daniel, 0.27 yards before contact per carry for Dameon Pierce.
That's very low.
It's nothing. He's getting hit basically the second he grabs the ball or behind the line of scrimmage. So I'm just fearful that this offense has just fallen apart entirely. There's a bit of quarterback change. That seemed to do absolutely nothing for the Houston Texans. It's just a dispirited offense right now in a lot of ways. And you're right, Cleveland no doubt has been bad against the run. You just wonder if the thing that could cure some of their ails is playing the Texans. And the emotions of this game will be interesting for me to follow, because maybe Houston gets really fired up to play in this game, because for a lot of reasons, there are a lot of emotions that have been running high surrounding Deshaun Watson's return, not just the NFL, but to Houston. Conversely, maybe the Browns have some pep in their step, and they're like, we may be 4-7. We can make a run right now, and it begins today. Maybe they come out and they put up 37 points, and all of a sudden we're talking about the Browns as that team that no one wants to face down the stretch.
Yeah, and there was a recent somewhat emotional game, at least a primetime game for Houston, and Philly was in town, undefeated, and
they played really well.
Yeah, they were playing well. They could have won that game, so I hear you.
Are there any other Texans pass catchers? We talked about Dameon Pierce. I actually agree with Field. Like, if I would rather not start him because of how I feel. I know that where you're at, but I feel nervous about it. However, anyone else on this Texans team that you would even consider?
I think you and I feel as nervous as someone can feel while still ranking a guy as RB16 in your ranks and RB18 in my ranks.
Yeah, my case is just I'm still starting him another week. So
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. The only other guy I want to talk about is Nico Collins, because I think he's worth a quick mention because he's the number 1 receiver for Houston right now. It is not Brandon Cooks right now. He has out-targeted Cooks in 3 straight games. The edge is not close. It's 26-18. Right? That's a pretty gigantic gap there. He's been held under 50 yards in all of those games, has Collins, but 8.6 targets per game. Usually a guy you're starting in fantasy, so he's at least on the flex radar. In 12-team leagues, maybe in 10-team leagues. We're not starting Cooks right now, ideally, But Collins trending up. Remember, he was a day 2 pick last year.
Yeah.
He's 6'4". He's now seeing a lot of volume. He's a name to keep an eye on here.
Seems like he could maybe be someone that could come up in a CSS DFS conversation. I don't know. Maybe
Award-winning
something to
show
think about.
available after this one.
All right.
All right, let's talk Commanders at Giants. Lineup locks for this NFC East showdown include Terry McLaurin and Saquon Barkley, one member from each team respectively.
That's about right.
And that is about right.
And get used to this because they play twice in 3 weeks to these two.
This
4 weeks,
scheduling
but
quirk is fun.
Twice in 3 games for the Commanders. They have a bye in between, but they have yet to play. They're going to play twice over the next 4 weeks.
We've talked about these running backs ad nauseum. Mike Clay, if you are looking at these 2 running backs, we've gone back and forth with the way that Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are used. Which one would you prefer if you were picking a Commanders running back this week?
Yeah, I still have Gibson higher. I have him 21. I have Robinson at 33. Gibson 13 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 games. 15 touches per game during that run. So again, if a running back's getting 15 touches per game and he's involved in the passing game, he's at least on the RB2 radar, right? So I'm fine with him. As for Robinson, 19 touches per game over his last 4, but 0 targets in 5 of his 8 games. We've been picking on him for that. The good news is he had a career high 3 targets last week. So it was a point in the right direction. He actually looked good on those. He caught a touchdown.
He did, yep.
So that helps. But is that repeatable or does he go back to 0 this week? It's very possible that happens. So a little lower. He's a flex option. Gibson, the preferred play here.
Yeah, over the past 5 weeks, Antonio Gibson has more snaps, routes, targets, yards, and fantasy points than Brian Robinson, who has the slight edge, 7 more touches than Antonio Gibson. But of course, as the bell cow running back, you're going to see more rushing attempts.
Yeah.
So no surprise, we all have Antonio Gibson ranked above Brian Robinson.
And that's really it. Other than those running backs and Terry McLaurin, we're not looking at any of those other pass catchers for the Commanders, for the Giants.
30 teams playing this week.
Yeah,
If you don't
that's
have a better option than
yeah.
a Giants wide receiver, it's probably poor roster construction.
Not looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, Slayton's been like he's hanging on the flex radar. He's flirted with the top 20 a couple weeks.
If you
But
play in a
around.
multi-flex
Hanging
league or
around.
something, or if you play in a 16-team league, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But in a 10-team
It's
league,
got-
there are better options.
Alligator blood. No? Nothing?
Don't know that one.
Hanging
Nope.
around.
nope.
Educate.
Wow, I'm so
Was
disappointed.
is this Al on the CSS
tune into
DFS
the CSS
podcast?
DFS podcast because Al will have it in a second. You'll find out what that was from. All right, sorry.
You're not going to tell us, really?
No.
You're going to let the audience hang.
Rounders. You never watched
Okay.
Rounders?
Oh, yes.
Teddy
oh my
KGB
God.
at the end.
How did I not? Oh, my God. It's so bad by me. Great movie.
Great movie.
Also, a really good that was a really good impression by you.
Thank you. I appreciate
It was so
that.
good that you had
Yes.
no idea what he was talking about.
what are you talking about?
Nailed it.
I mean, now when I piece it together, that was a great impression.
you.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what they always say when you have to explain a joke. That means it's a good
Mike
joke.
Clay.
No,
That's how
like,
the
the
saying
thing about
goes, I think.
Rounders, what's great about Rounders is that that's, I don't know about the breakthrough, but certainly a breakthrough movie for some of the greatest actors of the past 35 years.
Dude,
right?
Matt Damon was in that movie. John Turturro was in that movie.
Yeah.
Edward Norton.
Yep.
Oh shoot, there are so many. It's been a minute since I've
All right,
watched
let's go
it.
watch it.
Dude, I would
now.
love to. It's an awesome movie. It's
But
so much fun.
I go back and forth. Is that what's the breakthrough? What's the breakout movie for Matt Damon?
The breakout movie. Well, for me, I think probably Good Will Hunting.
I was gonna say it's either Good Will Hunting or Rounders, right? I
saw
feel like Good Will Hunting because it is who he is, right? He's this kid
Yeah.
from Massachusetts who, sort of on the outskirts and finds his way
Like you.
inside the hallways of Harvard.
And you found your way into the hallways of ESPN. Kid from Massachusetts.
There it is. Okay,
All right,
yeah,
see
I'm
that?
basically
All right.
Matt Damon.
We're gonna
I'm
make
just-
all right. So in the off season, we're gonna do a parody of that
Yes.
movie using Fields.
Yes.
Life
Will
story.
Hunting. Do we have a chalkboard anywhere that I can do math
I'm sure we
problems
can
on?
find some-
That's
yeah,
how
we'll
Mike
find
does his
something.
projections.
Good
It's the same
field
formula
hunting.
as Good Will Hunting. Yeah.
Good field hunting. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Oh wow, that sounds like a new column on E+. All right, Titans at
Minus plus.
Eagles. Minus plus. Titans at Eagles is the final game we're going to talk about here on this Thursday. Lineup blocks include obviously Derrick Henry and all of the Eagles. Can we
Pretty
just say
much,
all
yeah.
of the Eagles?
Pretty
Jalen
much.
Hurts, Miles Sanders, AJ Brown. One thing to mention. Devonta Smith was limited yesterday at practice with a groin injury, something to just be able to keep an eye on.
New injury, so we don't know exactly how significant it was, but it doesn't seem like there was major cause for concern as of last check.
But Devonta Smith would continue to be a flex play for us, as he almost always is because of what he could do within this offense. There are ups and downs here with both him and A.J. Brown, but you're sort of living with that within this offense.
Yeah, exactly. Much like the Gabe Davis analysis, he's been up and down 8 or more targets in 3 straight games and 5 of his last 7. That's good. If you think in an Eagles offense it scores so much, that would be great. The production has not followed, but this is a good matchup. Titans second most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. So
we need a term.
I'm probably using them.
We need a term.
Yeah.
Like rather than talking about guys like Gabe Davis and Devontae Smith and pointing out that like they have X number of targets over their past 5 games and they have at least this number of fantasy points and only 2 of their past 7 games. We need like a one size fits all description that like the guy's really talented. He plays in a good offense. We don't know how it's going to go. X factor, wild card.
I was going to say
Jekyll
wild
and
card.
Hyde.
Yeah.
What do you want to call him, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what it is.
We'll workshop this.
Yeah, we need to think. So, like, we're from the masses. If you have an idea,
good call.
Right? Like, if you have an idea of what to call these players, guys that are certainly talented, certainly playing a good enough offense, but have been inconsistent, and every week when you start them, you don't know whether you're supposed to sweat or get excited about it.
Yep. So, like wild cards, loose cannons, all over the map. Like, I'll just call him a Dopp. Right?
Oh
like
my
Wow.
Wow.
Is that your dad joke for the week?
That's, I wish it was.
Still more coming.
So
But you know what I mean? Like
it's like a yo-yo play is what it is, but I don't like that term as much. But yeah.
It's something like
Someone
you
said
don't.
always late in my ear.
So, wow. It doesn't return text messages.
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
This is it.
We'll
We're gonna work on it.
Yeah.
He's dopping again.
Let's talk about someone who got in the end zone last week. First touchdown as a rookie. Shout out to Traylon Burks. Doesn't make a difference that you didn't catch it yourself and that Derrick Henry did all the work
about it.
Oh, especially as a Derrick Henry manager, if you needed him to get in the end zone all the way down there and then doesn't get that, he has the fumble and doesn't get the touchdown.
Well, if you have,
I lost a matchup because of Traylon Burks' fumble recovery.
Oh my
you
gosh.
really? So you had him and got the touch, didn't get the touch,
No,
or vice versa?
I was playing against him. Third
Oh,
highest
he got-
scorer in
he
a
got the
12-team
touchdown.
league for the week.
Yeah.
And I lost to the highest scoring player of the week, who beat me by 5 points.
Ugh.
Because he recovered a fumble in the end zone that
Yes.
anyone could have.
That literally,
fallen on.
like,
Of all the ways,
Fantasy
though,
football, my friends.
outside of just catching just for fun, just like outside of catching a touchdown for your first touchdown as a rookie, having this story of like, yeah, Derrick Henry ran the ball 67 yards and I recovered a fumble in the end zone for my first touchdown is a pretty okay way to have like your first rookie touchdown.
I guess so.
Couldn't be too bad. Anyways,
But
are you
he's
starting
been
him this
fine.
week? Last couple weeks he has been not bad, but this passing game is just so tough for the Titans.
Yeah, 181 yards on 11 catches the last 2 weeks. The touchdown obviously was lucky, but that'll come if he keeps seeing this sort of yardage. But they're playing Eagles, right? Fewest fantasy points allowed to the perimeter of the season. The matchup doesn't get much tougher than this. So he's 40th on my board, 12-team league flex, 10-team leagues, probably not starting him.
Yep. Especially again with 2 teams on a bye, you can probably find a better match up
would say so.
elsewhere.
yep, I would think so as well.
All right.
Fun player, though. Fun player
Wait,
to
hold
watch.
on. One quick thing. Miles Sanders, we do have him, we have him lower than usual, right? He's 20th.
Really good
This
run
is-
defense.
There is bust potential in this one.
Okay.
For
Tell
him.
me more.
The Titans have allowed the 3rd fewest rushing yards, 2nd fewest rushing touchdowns, 5th lowest yards per carry. They get beat. Like you look at the fantasy points allowed, it's not horrendous, but it's the passing game where they get beat up. They're really good stopping the run, and that's where almost all of Miles Sanders' work is, right? He's not targeted much. The one possible saving grace is that 3 targets last week. That was a big change for him from what we've seen recently. Maybe that gives him some hope. It's part of why I have him ranked 20th still. But there's bust potential in this one because of how the Titans' defense is constructed and how they've been against running backs. But again, I'm still probably starting him. But I just wanted to
RB20,
mention
but-
that.
yep.
Maybe it's more for DFS.
Makes you
Maybe.
nervous.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It does make me nervous. He's had a couple games like that, like Washington.
Yep.
We just talked about Washington's run defense, where there was 2 worst games this year were against Washington. So just something to think about if you have a good roster. It's a close call. Maybe a lean away.
Okay. Miles Sanders makes you a little bit nervous.
Good insight.
Makes me nervous.
This is why we freaking have Mike Clay on the podcast.
That's why.
Love it. All right, good stuff there. All the game previews. We have the full game preview show coming tomorrow. We have, if I do the math right, 1, 2, 3, 4 games already previewed. We have a total of 15. So 11 more game previews coming tomorrow. It'll be me, Mike, and Stefania. But now it's time for us to turn our attention to our good friend, Mr. Adam Schefter. Schefter, good morning to you.
Good morning, Phil. I have a question. I've got Miles Sanders on my roster.
Okay.
I've got DeAndre Swift on my roster.
Yeah.
I've got Jalen Warren on my roster. I've got Gus Edwards on my roster.
Yep.
What's Mike Clay doing there?
Oof. Mike, you want to check?
I didn't hear the question.
You
Someone
ready?
was in my ear.
You
So
have to
what-
choose 2 out of 4. Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Gus Edwards, and Jalen Warren.
Ooh, if
Najee's out.
I'm still probably in that situation. I'm probably going Sanders. If Najee's out, maybe
two.
Warren. I might be going Warren.
Choose 2. You would choose Jalen Warren over Miles Sanders if Najee is out?
Sanders and Warren.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And sitting DeAndre Swift and Gus
Yeah,
Edwards.
I don't really want to use Swift right now. He's barely touching the ball.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shefty.
Swift worries me. I think I have one more. I'm just looking right now. Swift worries me a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and I have Chuba Hubbard on a bye, so that's not going to work.
No,
so
don't want him.
Shefty
and then my last lineup question: Donovan Peoples-Jones or Gabe Davis tonight?
Oh, this is
Gabe Davis.
both of these guys are those guys that we were just talking about, though, where it's like those dart throws.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Peoples-Jones has been more consistent lately, but I'm going with Gabe Davis for sure. Just tough.
Okay.
Yeah,
Big play
again, teams
upside.
don't throw against Houston, and Cleveland's not going to have to throw against Houston.
Okay.
We were discussing how the Browns could be up big against Houston, Shefty, and it could be because they run the ball 30 times in the first half, and Nick Chubb has 30 fantasy points in the first half.
Texans cornerbacks, defensive backs, are allowing only 10 receptions per week.
Yeah, and that's because teams just continue to run the football against Houston. It seems to work so far. I wonder if maybe this is a week where the Browns try to kind of get some rhythm going for their offense as it would be a Hail Mary, but if they try to make a playoff push with Deshaun Watson now back under center. Shefty, I want to start in Los Angeles because the Rams offense has become a shell of itself, and it feels like every day that passes, it feels less likely to me that we will see any of these key offensive players back on the field. What's your sense on Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and who am I forgetting on offense? Nobody else on offense. Allen Robinson obviously is out for the year. Any sense on where things might unfold?
What did we talk about Sunday with Matthew Stafford, right?
We'll see.
The Rams are uncertain, have been uncertain, when or if Matthew Stafford will play again this season.
Yeah.
So I would say to you this. What is the Rams' record right now?
3-9.
Okay,
8.
3-9.
8.
Okay, so
9.
Matthew Stafford has had numbness in his leg. He was in concussion protocol twice. He's had the elbow injury. Why are you bringing Matthew Stafford back to a 3-9 team behind a shaky up? Why would you do that?
You wouldn't. You would not. It would be
there you
unwise to me to do that, especially.
Let's just deploy some common sense thinking right now.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So, again, Matthew Stafford could always come back and play. I'm not ruling him out. I'm just telling you, it defies logic to think that we're going to see Matthew Stafford soon, if at all, again this season. To me.
I'm with you. Just 6 weeks left in the regular season, of course. Same division. And this one I think is tricky, Shefty. So Christian McCaffrey, he's banged up. Elijah Mitchell's out for the rest of the year. What do you know about where things stand with the 49ers backfield, and if there are any names to keep an eye on in that roster, that roster?
Phil, don't beat around the bush, okay? You're asking a pointed question because I made a move in the war room yesterday.
You did.
But sometimes I make moves knowing something, and sometimes I make moves not knowing something. In this particular case, I made a move not knowing something. And the guy that I picked up yesterday was Tevin Coleman. Now, here's the deal. Look, Elijah Mitchell's out 6 to 8 weeks. Christian McCaffrey's banged up and is not that kind of workhorse back for them anyway. I don't think they need somebody to complement Christian McCaffrey even when he is fully healthy. So who's that going to be? Now, it could be Jordan Mason. I told you about him earlier in the year. They like him.
Yeah.
Still a rookie, undrafted free agent, I believe. Tyrion Davis-Price, we really haven't seen or heard much from, though they have a high draft pick invested in him. I just know that they have in the past liked Tevin Coleman. So I picked up Tevin Coleman. I had a free roster spot. I don't know that that's going to be the guy, but I'm going to make some calls out there this weekend. I'll speak to some people. We'll get a feel of things. When I make my next war room move at running back for the four, you'll know exactly what I think they're going to do. But we'll talk about it more on Fantasy Football Focus Sunday. Did I get the name of the right?
Fantasy Football Now.
Focus.
I know. It's
Fantasy
a lot.
Football Now.
A lot of Fantasy Football Now Sunday. We're Fantasy Focus here right now. So
Okay, there we go. We're on Fantasy Focus now. Fantasy Football Sunday.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that situation on Sunday when there's a little bit more clarity. But for now, as I said to you yesterday, Tevin Coleman was a speculative ad. I had a free spot. If I didn't have the spot, I probably wouldn't have made the move. But to me, he's an interesting name because there's going to be a back that emerges that becomes somebody that complements Christian McCaffrey in my mind. And the question is who? And right now, I don't know, but I know that Tevin Coleman is somebody that they've liked in the past.
Monday Night Football games are always a little bit tricky because, of course, by the time people are making their decisions at 1 o'clock on Sunday, there's still some information we may not know.
Right.
So Leonard Fournette had a hip injury before the team's bye. We thought he might have played this past week. He did not. Do you expect you could see him back this upcoming Monday night against New Orleans?
Look, if I rostered Leonard Fournette I don't think I'd count on him for Monday night. Not that he won't play, but if he does play, my guess is he'll be out there. But I think Rachaad White made a statement last weekend, which is the statement we've been waiting for him to make all year long. We've been talking about Rachaad White.
Yeah.
And I just think that even if Leonard Fournette plays, and my guess is it's against New Orleans, it's the team that he probably grew up rooting for, he'll be out there in some form or capacity. But Rachaad White has brought that offense a little bit of juice, a little bit of spark, fresh legs. I think they're going to continue to feature and use Rachaad White. So if Leonard Fournette does play, what is his role? I think his role becomes what Rachaad White's role used to be. That's my just guess, read, sense, not knowing anything specifically before speaking to the Buccaneers in the coming days.
All right, so I'll get you out of here on this one, Schefty. It's an injury that we've all been tracking since it took place because he had been the star of fantasy football. Justin Fields, they have their bye in week 14, do the Bears, which means they have one game prior to that. Do you have any sense about whether he'll be available this upcoming Sunday?
What was his practice status yesterday, Field?
Limited.
Limited, right.
Limited
Okay.
Wednesday, yeah. Which I expect it to
again,
be every day this week just
I agree.
because, that would be a big jump to go from limited 4 or 5 straight days to full participation.
And my guess would be in their situation that, and I rostered Justin Fields in one league. I'm not going to start him this week because my guess on Thursday would be that he doesn't play. They have a bye week next week.
Yeah.
They're not in the playoff mix. Why? I know that they want to beat the Packers. It means a lot, the rivalry. I got it. But Matt Eberflus said something last Friday that I thought he tipped his hand last Friday. I thought that's when we knew Justin Fields wasn't going to play. He said, unless Justin Fields is 100%, I'm not playing him.
Yeah.
Well, he's limited yesterday, so he's still not 100%. I don't think he's going to be 100% by Sunday. And if we're going to use Matt Eberflus's statement from last Friday, I think the same would be true this Sunday, especially considering that they have a bye next week. So if they don't play Justin Fields this week when he's not fully healthy, they can rest him for 2 more weeks and then have the option of assessing where they're at, how he's feeling, where their season's at, and whether they want to bring him back after the bye.
Big game on Sunday, Shefty. People are out there saying, what, these teams are 3-9 and 4-8. You probably know this. The Bears and the Packers are currently tied for the most wins ever, all time. And the Bears have held that record by themselves or been tied since 1920. Green Bay could end a 102-year streak on Sunday if they get a win. So I might as well, I said to get you on that, but I might as well ask you this while we have you. Aaron Rodgers, same, I think, is the analysis the same that, like, we don't know for sure right now, but maybe you lean towards him playing on Sunday?
Well, look, Aaron Rodgers said he plans to play. Yeah. Matt LaFleur said he plans to play Aaron Rodgers. I'll take the word of both of them and say that Aaron Rodgers is going to play, especially against the Bears. Look, they're not going to make the playoffs in all probability, right? Their playoff chances at this point have to be 1 or 2%. Yep. But until they're mathematically eliminated, we're going to continue to see Aaron Rodgers, if he can be out there, as healthy as he can be. And he's not fully healthy, but he wants to be there until they're eliminated. If they're eliminated after this game or after the next week, I think at that point in time, the Packers then turn to Jordan Love to see what they have. They've got a decision to make on his 5th-year option this offseason. You want to see what he's like anyway. But as long as there is a mathematical chance, as slim and infinitesimal as it is right now, I think Aaron Rodgers is out there.
That speaks to those of us that play fantasy football, Shefty, right? Like, I'm going to keep picking up players off the waiver wire, looking for trades if my trade deadline hasn't passed already, until I am mathematically eliminated in my fantasy football league. As always, Shefty, great stuff. I will be talking to you on NFL Live later today, or no?
Yeah, we'll be on NFL Live. Look forward to doing that later. I know LeBron James will be watching for Marcus Spears, and we'll have a great day.
A lot of pressure on you and I and the rest of the cast to meet the standard set by Swagoo. But, Shefty, we always appreciate you here on Fantasy Focus. We'll talk to you on Fantasy Football Now this Sunday morning.
We can't meet that standard. We're there just to support him, Field, but we will do that today.
We're just there to support him. Yes, in many ways, we will support our guy, Swagoo. Shefty, you're the best. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
All righty, good stuff with Shefty as always. I think we have a couple of social questions before we say goodbye.
Why not throw it out to Thirsty Kyle? We have not seen him really. Thirsty
I got
Kyle.
you covered.
Okay, here he is.
Antoine wants you guys to call the Gabe Davises of the world bubble players.
Bubble players.
Bubble players.
Okay with
I can
that.
work with that, yeah.
But doesn't that suggest like borderline starters though? Like they're on the bubble of starting them?
Isn't that kind of what we're saying?
Not really. I mean,
Mike Williams
you're
isn't
always
on the
starting Mike Williams. You know?
bubble.
I think Mike Williams might be a tier above these other guys. Devontae.
What's a
Gabe
tier above a bubble?
Davis.
But there's other bubble guys who aren't as boom bust though. Right?
Okay,
There's
so
I don't know. I don't like
bubble
it.
is
I don't
out.
like it.
Antoine, I
Scrapping
like it,
bubble.
but apparently we're still workshopping.
Yeah, we appreciate it, but that's not the answer.
Like Antoine, by the way, if you want to send some hate mail to Mike Clay
Yeah,
for that
go
very
for it.
dismissive
NFL.
answer, it's totally
Listen,
fine.
that's fine with me. I'll take it because I'm here to, get it right. All right.
Oh.
I'm not just going to settle just to be a nice guy.
Speaking
I'm
of,
gonna get this term right.
really quickly, and I know that we've talked about this. Last thing, we do have one more social question. My favorite part about go-karting last night was the fact that I named my go-kart Mike Clay NFL. So every time that Mike went to look at his times, he was like, "Oh yeah, I actually did pretty good." Wait, I'm not Mike Clay NFL. Which one am I? And my favorite thing.
That's
I
it.
love
it
naming
can't
my
mess
You
me
love
up.
doing that.
I
Like
love
during our
naming my
drafts,
teams.
Yeah,
Daniel
he does
always
this all the
named
time.
Field Yates or Stefania Bell and then like I'm on the clock. Yes, I can. Wait, I still have 8 more picks to actually go. What the heck?
Hate it.
It's so
Man.
much fun. I love it.
I wanted
love you
DeAndre
guys.
Houston Carson so bad in the 3rd round.
All right, Kyle, give us another question here before we get out of here.
Jacob from chat wants to know what's the best way to join or start a dynasty league. Seems like fun, but he's never tried it. Seems like it'd be tough to get everybody to commit to such a long-term thing.
Ooh, you know what, Jacob? Here's the good news. The startup draft might take you a little bit more time, but it really is not that cumbersome of a process.
No.
It's really simple. You just go on ESPN. You can do it right there. You can draft players, and you just got to be diligent about I think the hardest part is the commissioner who has to keep track of traded picks because picks do fly all over the board in dynasty leagues. So that's, to me, the trickiest part. But otherwise, I would strongly encourage it.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot of dynasty startups at length in the offseason too.
Yeah.
That's probably when you're going to start that anyway. But yeah, my favorite leagues are my full dynasty leagues where you keep everyone. It's like you have those guys in the offseason. You're always busy. You're thinking about the rookie draft. It's more important than waiting until I'll watch the draft, but then I don't care about those guys till August. Like you're thinking about that right away. And some people I have rookie drafts that start right after the NFL draft.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it just keeps you involved year round. And I think
Engaged,
your
yeah.
league mates, what did I say? Involved, engaged, right? Exactly.
No, I was agreeing with your assessment.
Exactly. Right. So, yeah, I love them. Just keeps you again
Totally.
engaged year round, and I think your league mates, if they like their redraft leagues, will probably like Dynasty a lot. So give it a shot.
I would say too that if you have redraft leagues and you've never done dynasty, you're worried about finding people that would be invested in it. I would rather start small and be like, hey, if I get an 8-team dynasty league, then figure out how to be able to go from there. Find people, because for dynasty more than redraft, I feel like you have to have people that are invested and want to be able to say, hey, I understand this is going to be a multi-year thing, or I'm going to do this. It's not just like a redraft league. And because redraft is fun, but you just got to have a little bit more of an investment.
Yeah.
So always reaching out. Also, honestly, our chat is a great spot to be able to find people that would join
That's a good
dynasty
call.
leagues
Yeah,
with
good
you.
call. Yeah.
Jump in our Twitter or YouTube because there are people there that love the same things that you love. They love the same kind of football. You can come here and hang out and make
Go-kart racing
relationships.
and fantasy football. What more could you ask for?
We've already had a bunch of leagues started by people that are joining within our chat.
There we go.
That happen. So
ESPN Fantasy Football Chat Dynasty League.
That's
so
right.
many words.
That's-
but we'll
no,
nail
that's-
that down.
yeah,
rolls
We'll
right
workshop
off the
that
tongue,
too.
Mike.
We'll workshop all these things.
Between ESPN Fantasy Football Focus Dynasty League created via the chat league of
FF
people
now.
that play together in Dynasty Leagues.
Presented by Geico.
that's going to be our Thursday show. Guys, I love you.
Love you
Love
too,
you too.
buddy. We'll do it again tomorrow.
We'll do it. No, we won't.
Okay, well,
Not you.
some of us will be here.
You guys will do it again tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Keith.
Happy birthday, Keith. For everybody on the show today, even those behind the scenes, we love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Please don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. These two idiots will see you tomorrow. Peace.
Wait,
To be
that's the
kind
nicest
to
thing you've ever
each
said to
other.
each other. I know.
Be kind to each other. These idiots will be here tomorrow. As usual, you put on the facade for the show, and then you forgot the
Not
camera
so
was still
Mr.
rolling.
Nice Guy.
No. The real Daniel shows up at the last second. All right, let's go through these lap times.